Right now, the February 2026 winter storm apocalypse is officially over, but the crisis in the United States is not. As of this morning, February 4th, 153 people have lost their lives. That makes this the deadliest winter storm to strike North America since Winter Storm Uri killed nearly 300 people in 2021. From the Carolinas to New York, from Tennessee to the Gulf Coast, the scale of this disaster is staggering. 800,000 customers remain without power, some entering their second week in the dark. And the temperatures? They are still life-threatening. New York City alone has confirmed 17 deaths, most of them from hypothermia. 13 people died outdoors in the cold. In Tennessee, the death toll has climbed to 25. Across North Carolina, emergency shelters are still operating at capacity. And according to the National Weather Service, another winter storm is already forming. New warnings have been issued for 15 states. This is not over. Here is the important part. The American Red Cross reports that more than 700 responders are still deployed across the affected regions. Utility crews are working around the clock, but in some areas, full restoration could take weeks. Hospitals are rationing blood supplies, schools remain closed, and millions of people are asking the same question. When the next storm hits, will we be ready? This is the story of how two massive winter storms brought the eastern United States to its knees, and what happens when our infrastructure, our emergency systems, and our communities are pushed to the breaking point. When in the maps and satellite loops, you can see exactly when this disaster began to take shape. Around January 21st, 2026, a powerful low-pressure system formed over the southern plains. It drew moisture from two sources: warm, humid air streaming north from the Gulf of Mexico, and additional moisture pulled from the Pacific. At the same time, a massive Arctic air mass was plunging south from Canada. When these systems collided over the central United States, Winter Storm Fern was born. The storm moved east, crossing the Rocky Mountains and intensifying. By January 23rd, winter weather alerts stretched from Texas to Maine. According to NOAA, 230 million people were under some form of weather advisory. That is more than two-thirds of the entire U.S. population. 24 states declared emergencies. And President Trump approved 12 federal emergency declarations in what officials called record time. The storm hammered the country for 5 days straight. Tennessee, Kentucky, and Mississippi were buried under ice. In Nashville, ice-covered trees snapped power lines by the thousands. Pittsburgh saw up to 23 inches of snow in some areas. New York and New Jersey reported a foot or more. And then, just as Fern began to weaken, a second storm formed. On January 30th, a new system developed off the southeast coast. Meteorologists labeled it a bomb cyclone because the pressure dropped so rapidly. This second storm, unofficially named Winter Storm Gianna by the Weather Channel, brought near-blizzard conditions to the Carolinas. Charlotte, North Carolina recorded 11.4 inches of snow, tying a record set in 1880. When in parts of North Carolina, more than 20 inches of snow fell. It was the most snow the state had seen in decades. By the time the storm finally weakened, at least 153 people had lost their lives. The infrastructure damage was catastrophic. At the peak of the storm, more than 1 million customers were without electricity. According to poweroutage.us, that number hit 1 million on Sunday, January 25th, at 2:14 p.m. Eastern Time. Ice accumulation in the south was so severe that utility companies warned restoration could take days, even weeks, and it has. As of today, February 4th, 800,000 people are still in the dark. Air travel collapsed. More than 11,000 flights were canceled during the first storm weekend alone. It was the worst single day of flight cancellations since the COVID-19 pandemic, according to aviation officials. Airports from Charlotte to New York were paralyzed. Tens of thousands of passengers were stranded. The cold has been relentless. In Florida, low temperature records fell. Daytona Beach dropped to 23 degrees Fahrenheit. Tampa saw snow flurries. And across the eastern United States, wind chills have remained dangerously low for nearly 2 weeks. The polar vortex, according to AccuWeather, is locked in place and will keep frigid conditions over the East Coast through much of February. Right now, the thermometer in New York City reads 18 degrees. In North Carolina, it is 12. and the forecast shows no significant warm-up for at least another week. And walk into one of the emergency shelters still open tonight. Gym floors are lined with cots and folded blankets. Children play quietly with donated toys while their parents huddle around extension cords trying to charge phones. Some families have been here for 10 days. They are waiting for two things that still have not fully returned: heat and certainty. The American Red Cross launched what it called a massive response across multiple states. More than 745 trained responders were deployed in the first 72 hours. In Louisiana alone, 53 responders were on the ground. Volunteers drove hundreds of miles to staff emergency shelters. The Red Cross is still operating warming centers in Tennessee, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Virginia. But the needs are overwhelming. If families are not just seeking warmth, they need food, clean water, medical care, and information. In Mississippi, prolonged power outages have left residents unable to follow boil water advisories because they have no electricity to boil anything. Hospital emergency rooms have treated dozens of hypothermia cases, and the strain on the healthcare system has been compounded by another crisis: blood shortages. According to the Red Cross, winter weather forced the cancellation of hundreds of blood donation events across the affected regions. The organization has been pre-positioning blood supplies, but the shortfall has been significant. Hospitals are stretching dwindling reserves. Elective surgeries have been delayed. For patients who need transfusions, every unit counts. In New York City, the death toll has climbed to 17. The Mayor Zohran Mamdani confirmed on February 4th that preliminary findings show 13 of those deaths were caused by hypothermia. Most of the victims were found outdoors. 3 deaths were linked to overdoses during the extreme cold. City officials have been conducting wellness checks and urging residents to seek shelter. But for New York's homeless population, options are limited. The city is also dealing with infrastructure failures. In Brooklyn's Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood, more than 1,000 Con Edison customers lost power after last week's snowstorm. Some residents have been without electricity for days. Garbage collection has been delayed, and streets are clogged with snow and refuse. Another winter storm is forecast to hit the city this weekend, and officials are scrambling to prepare. Here is the important part. North Carolina, a state that rarely sees double-digit snowfall, has extended its statewide emergency order. Governor Roy Cooper has warned that the next storm could bring another 4 to 6 inches of snow, along with dangerous wind chills. Emergency management teams are coordinating with utility companies to pre-position crews. Schools across the state remain closed, and families who just started to dig out are bracing for round 3. Tennessee is facing a similar situation. The state has confirmed 25 weather-related deaths as of February 3rd. Power restoration efforts have been slowed by ice-covered roads and continued freezing temperatures. The Tennessee Emergency Management Agency has activated all county emergency operations centers. Shelters are still open. And officials are urging residents to conserve electricity because the grid remains fragile. In Virginia and Georgia, emergency declarations have been extended. South Carolina is preparing for additional snow. And across the South, a region not built for prolonged winter weather, the cracks in the system are showing. Utility companies have brought in crews from other states. Line workers are sleeping in hotels between 12-hour shifts. Some have been working for 2 weeks straight. The coordination between federal, state, and local agencies has improved since the early days of the storm, but the sheer scale of the damage has made progress slow. Airlines have issued flexible rebooking policies, waiving change fees for passengers affected by the storms. But with another system approaching, my flight cancellations are already starting again. Airports are preparing for disruptions. Travelers are being told to check their flight status before heading to the terminal. They are waiting for 2 things that still have not fully returned: heat and certainty. When you step back from the day-to-day updates, a larger story comes into focus. This disaster has exposed critical weaknesses in American infrastructure, emergency response systems, and long-term planning. Start with the power grid. The South in particular has struggled. Trees near power lines brought down entire sections of the electrical system. Ice accumulation, sometimes half an inch thick, snapped wooden poles like twigs. In states like Tennessee and Mississippi, where ice storms are less common, the grid was simply not designed to handle this kind of sustained stress. Aging infrastructure made the problem worse. According to energy experts, some of the equipment that failed during Winter Storm Fern was decades old. Transportation networks also proved fragile. Interstate highways shut down across multiple states. In some areas, emergency vehicles could not reach people in need. Pittsburgh saw near-record snowfall, and the city's road crews were stretched thin. Charlotte's airport, a major hub, was paralyzed for days. When a single choke point fails, the ripple effects spread across the country. Then there is the blood supply. The American Red Cross reports that the national blood inventory dropped significantly during the storms. Donation events were canceled. Donors could not travel, and hospitals, already dealing with hypothermia cases and storm-related injuries, face shortages at the worst possible time. The system is fragile. Shelter capacity has also been tested. In some cities, emergency shelters reach maximum capacity within hours. Volunteers were overwhelmed, and while the Red Cross and the other organizations responded heroically, the reality is that millions of people do not have a backup plan. When the power goes out for days or weeks, where do they go? There is also a deeper climate signal. A warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture. That means when cold air and storm systems do line up, the result can be heavier snow, more intense ice storms, and larger swings between unseasonable warmth and dangerous Arctic outbreaks. Scientists have been warning for years that climate change does not just mean gradual warming. It means more extreme weather events, more variability, and more stress on infrastructure that was designed for a different climate. Winter Storm Uri in 2021 killed nearly 300 people and caused an estimated $295 billion in damage, much of it in Texas. Now, Winter Storm Fern and Gianna have killed 153 people and caused an estimated $105 to $115 billion in damage, according to AccuWeather. These are not freak events, they are becoming part of a pattern. The question now is not only how to rebuild, but how to make sure the next winter storm apocalypse does not push the same systems even closer to the breaking point. That means investing in grid resilience, updating building codes, expanding shelter capacity, and rethinking how we respond to extreme weather. It also means recognizing that these storms disproportionately affect the most vulnerable: the homeless, the elderly, people living in older homes, and communities with limited resources. The cost of inaction is measured in lives lost, families displaced, and systems that fail when they are needed most. Tonight, Winter Storm Gianna is fading from the maps, and another system is still approaching. New winter storm warnings have been issued for 15 states. Snow is expected. Wind chills will remain dangerous. And millions of people are preparing, once again, to face the cold. But for millions of people, this winter will be remembered not by storm names, but by nights spent in cold houses, by long lines at shelters, and by the quiet fear of wondering what happens if the lights go out again. Yet in the middle of this crisis, there are stories of resilience. Neighbors have been running extension cords to each other's homes, sharing generators and hot meals. Volunteers have driven hundreds of miles to staff Red Cross shelters, sleeping on cots alongside the families they are helping. Line crews have worked through the night in sub-zero temperatures to restore power. Hospital staff have stretched dwindling blood supplies, making impossible decisions about who gets care first. And across the affected states, people have shown up for each other. 153 people have died. 800,000 are still without power. But millions more have survived because someone reached out a hand. We will keep tracking both the science and the human stories as this historic winter continues to unfold. If you found this update useful, consider sharing it, subscribing, and letting us know how these storms are affecting you and your family. And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and stay prepared. How do you think your community should change after what this winter has revealed?